Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of Yomo. This is the Year of Material Learning podcast, and we are on Reflection 361. Four more from 365, and that's where we're gonna conclude and wrap up the first, I
Leg of
guess,
the
the
marathon.
first
Yeah.
editions
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the Yomo.
yeah,
So here again with another new book, and I might like this book. But I
yeah.
like Chris
That's a good one.
introduce the book.
It's one of my favorite authors that favorite voices I've discovered on this journey. His name's I think it's pronounced Ozan Varol.
Hmm.
I don't know, but exactly. The book's called Awaken Your Genius, Escape Conformity, Ignite Creativity, and Become Extraordinary. So if you remember this name and the name sounds familiar, if you've been following along with this journey, this is the same author as Think Like a Rocket Scientist. And that was a great book and one that I'll talk about in the reflection here in a second. But this is his second follow-up book. Was such a big fan of the first one. He wrote a second book and I bought it on pre-order and was really excited to do this. And I thought, what a great way to end this journey. The original 365 as, and I'll get into the reflection why that's the first book was so sentimental to me and Amelia on this journey. But in addition to that book, he got me to um, become a follower of his on Substack, and so I get his weekly little newsletter that he sends out. He always has great like content of really thoughtful, reflective and ideas and things that he shares, and I really like this guy's just general. I don't know. I connect with it, and in
Hmm.
general of what his message is and what he's putting out there in the world about sparking your creativity and following your passions and what you like to do and et cetera, et cetera. So um, uh, I like the voice, like the guy. The funny thing about this book is I actually didn't even need to read it because it was basically he little did I know his weekly newsletter that he's been sending out for the past 3 years has basically been him writing his second book, and testing out content of stuff that he's like, researching. It was like he compiled it all together. So if you
Hmm.
follow along with him regularly, you kind of already read the book, in general. But anyway, I was happy to support him because I like this guy and I like his
Hmm.
uh, I'm happy to support this guy because I think he does a great job. So the title of this reflection is "Be the Verb, Not the Noun," and I'll explain why. But I got to go back to the beginning of this journey really fast. This is a really important mental milestone for me and Amelia on this journey. So this is Think Like a Rocket Scientist was the if you go back to reflection, I think it was 109 or something is when I wrote the reflection for this one. But this was actually like the first deviation book that Amelia and I read together from our normal stuff, from not our normal, from my normal stuff that I would have, consumed before I met her. So most of the books that we had been reading after she, had passed away and had started, in the NICU and beyond until, the first like 3 or 4 months after she had passed away. These were all books that I, already knew of, or they were business background books or things that I had probably saved and had heard of in my own professional life and that was it. I mean, that was all that I knew to even look for from sources of like, hey, read Good to Great, or hey, go read the hard things about hard things that the old CEO of the company I worked at,
Hmm.
or Darren Hardy's Compound Effect, or like like these books were books that I knew where to go to, but I didn't, but I hadn't really deviated outside of my norms of before Amelia, right?
Hmm.
This is the first like true deviation where I feel like we just completely with Think Like a Rocket Scientist, which Amelia and I completely we were a little bit further removed from her passing at this point in time. I was starting to feel every once in a while like the tiniest amount of imagination and joy again. And I really was just being more curious with this book. I just stumbled upon it through searching through like it had just been released and it was I don't know, it just sounded kind of interesting. I was like, oh, what's this? I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what this book's about, but I've never heard of it. Like, we're just reading every day, and the goal was just to do something with Amelia. So I picked this book, right? So normally, this was around the time when I we didn't ever read or do audiobooks. We were still kind of probably 50-50 reading and audiobooks at this point in time in
Hmm.
the journey. And we would always have reading time, and then we would have exercise time, and then we would have writing time, and like it was all very much so broken apart, right? Whereas now, it's like every day is a run with an audiobook, and then we continue if we want to or whatever. But like I don't even know what it's like to listen to music anymore running. Basically, I mean it's always an audiobook, or whenever we're working out or exercising, there's
Hmm.
always something to help combo learning together. And this is like commonplace for us now, but like back then when this was going on, this was not commonplace for us. So this particular day on this particular run with this particular book, we were only about an hour away from finishing it. And this book was so far deviated from like the Think Like a Rocket Scientist book, so far from a deviation of what I would have ever have consumed, even thought to consume, before Amelia. I was loving it though. I mean, it was great. We were both like, it was sparking creativity. It was sparking, our mind and getting it going. And that was when I could start to kind of feel that tiniest little bit of a connection of what this whole journey became of living for two, and feeling out how to connect with Amelia through, red threads and doing stuff you like to do and all that other good stuff, right? So we're out on this run, and we had an hour left in this book when I started. We've been running for about 40 minutes. It was a beautiful day in May, and I remember this so visually in my head. I got to the point in time where we got back to around our house, and we'd been running for about 40 minutes, which was a long run for me at that time, right? Like I wasn't like that was a significant run already. I was like, well, looked down at my phone and there was 20 minutes left of this book, and I was like, let's just fucking keep doing this, So let's finish it. Let's just go until we finish. So we kept running until we heard, Audible hopes you've enjoyed this production, right? And finished the book, right? And I was like, oh man, like that was intense because like we just devoured a book really fast, doing it on a run, and it was a long and that turned out to be the first hour-long run that I ever ran in my life, right? I've never run for an hour straight, continuously, and that was the first time that I did that, and I really felt, I don't know, I felt something different after that. I read that book, and I felt something kind of awaken in me of how to find a way to connect with my daughter a little bit more. It was like the first little seed of what was to come of the next few years of us reconnecting and finding each other. And I feel like this particular book, the Think Like a Rocket Scientist book, was a big turning point for us and that journey. I'm saying this because I visually remember thinking, this is different. Like something's different here, right? Like this wasn't the same thing. This isn't the same person anymore, and we're finding a way to reconnect with each other. So for me, Ozan was a very that because of all that went into it, and Think Like a Rocket Scientist, like I was very connected to him as an author, right? Because he was one of the first authors that I ever deviated from my norm, to go explore, other thoughts and ideas. Well, long story short, I like I said, I could not finish this journey without, once his book came out and it happened to be toward the end of this journey, I was like, well, we got to do it, right? I mean, it would be like just got to be something that we finish with. So the funny thing is, the ironic thing about this whole entire book is, we didn't need to read it because this book's about escaping conformity, igniting your creativity, and becoming extraordinary, right? Like he goes through all these different ways to, in particular in the book, um, he said, let's see here. What did he say? He said, we'd these are things that he mentioned in the book. We'd already uneducated ourselves. We'd already confused the algorithms that we had been given. We'd already discovered what we like and don't like. We'd already played and connected in the here and now. We'd already found balanced existence. We'd already found a clean, burning, and renewable source to move us forward in the same manner. All these things had already been done at this point in time when we read this book. So everything that he was talking about in this book to awaken your genius, kind of thing, I was like, we were already awoke. We were already doing this stuff every single day through these conversations with you and through writing and reflecting and different books and things that we're exploring and how we're going about life and how we're living for two every single day with each other. So like really it's not that I didn't learn anything from the book. I always learned stuff, but it was more of a confirmation almost of we were already going down the road where we feel like we're connected together. And then he shares a story about Elton John where he goes Elton famously asked a songwriter, because he'd been a musician for a while. He was like, "Hey, how do you become a songwriter?" And the songwriter looks at him and he goes, "First step is just write some songs, man." Like it's like, oh, really? Like, okay, all right, I'll start just writing some songs. So for me, this is more of not a book about awakening our genius. This is more a reminder of me to be the verb, not the noun, right? If you really want to be the person you want to be in life. It's action. It's doing what you want to do every single day. And for me, I said at the beginning of this whole journey, I want to be a father to my daughter, right? And this is how we've figured out on this journey how we can still be a father. This is the verb in action of how I am a father to my daughter today, and we're going to continue to do this stuff going forward. And it's a really powerful experience and feeling, right? And that makes me proud. And yeah, I'm glad. It was an interesting book to finish up, with close to the finish line with this book. So anyway, I'd love to get your thoughts. Yeah.
Well, I think the first thing that comes out at me is that this is obvious, but it's not obvious. Just like
No.
what we talked about yesterday, what I was saying, it's so in the case that I'm saying to you here, it's like, okay, be the verb and not the noun. So if I say to you, hey, I'm a football player, okay, but I don't play football.
Right.
What does that
You're
tell
not
you?
You're not a football
Right?
player. You
Right?
were, maybe.
I mean, the thing is how you become a songwriter.
You write songs.
Write some songs, right?
Yeah.
How
Right.
are you a tennis player? What
Gotta
is
play
a tennis
tennis.
player? Right?
Yeah,
You
somebody plays
have to
tennis.
have a verb
Right.
to be the noun.
Right.
The noun is a result of what a verb, the noun is the result of a verb. Without the
Right.
verb, you're a hypocrite.
Agreed.
And you and I know how we feel about hypocrisy.
It's the worst
And
thing
you
you
and
could do.
I know about how people feel about hypocrisy.
It's horrible.
It is the worst thing for people. I mean, even there's like people say there's honor among thieves. Even thieves have to say, well, I'm going to lie to other people, but I'm not going to lie to you.
Right.
What I said to you is true. There's some kind of trust that's involved. So, like I said, this is obvious, but it's not obvious because
It's not.
people
So
take
many
it for
people
granted.
forget to do what they say they care about. And if they don't do what they say they care about, then that's not what they care about. Like this goes just a few reflections ago, we did show me your bank account and show me your calendar, and I'll show you what matters to you, right? Like, I mean, you want to see my bank account? You want to know what I've been spending money on all the fucking time
Tennis
for the past,
stuff,
it's like
pickleball
tennis and
stuff.
pickleball in this facility. And then, you want to see my calendar, what I do all day long? I'm talking to people about tennis and pickleball and doing this other shit, and talking to you and writing and reading and going on a run with my daughter.
I mean,
this is
you're not going to buy a bunch of stuff that you don't care about.
right.
Right? I mean, it's like, hey,
I can't.
if you say, hey, I'm gonna buy a bunch of like guitars, karaoke machines, and singing devices. If you don't care about, wanting or even liking music, right? Like you're talking about how you become a songwriter. Well, you can't say, well, I become a songwriter because I'm a songwriter because I
I
identify
just
myself as
listened
a
to music
songwriter.
and I heard it in
No,
my
even
head,
in listening to music,
yeah.
it's part of the verb. That's
Right.
part of it, right?
I
But
know. Yeah, that's true.
but if, for example, let's say I pick something that no one cares about. Let's say, hey, I'm a rocket scientist, for example.
Right.
But I have no inclination to be the rocket scientist. I have no inclination to even like visit or look at what a rocket looks like. I don't even know what a rocket looks like.
Right.
For example, right? I don't give a shit. I don't care. Right. For me to claim to be a rocket scientist is like, right? That's hypocrisy. And if I were to even put an effort into learning about it, I may not have the skills or whatever. I may want to still have other ways to kind of like get myself involved, right? For me, like I can't play football at all, but I watch it, I analyze it like to the shit, right? It's like completely in an overindulgence kind of way. Like you do everything, like you watch football like 3 different TVs with 3 different like analysts talking about a bunch of stuff. Like that's the absurdity of liking something, because that brings you some kind of an emotional joy. And that even when you don't have the stature, you don't have the skills, right? But you still like it, you're gonna spend the time doing it. And that's in itself still a verb. It's a verb of I like to do this, I like to do that, or I like to be in nature, or I don't like to be in nature, whatever it is that floats your boat. So that's to me, it's so obvious when somebody put it out, but we don't. I guess we don't focus on the obvious. You know what I mean? For some reason, we're looking for some kind of complex, some kind of deep
Right.
thought answers about
Simplicity,
what
right?
life is. Hey, what is the meaning of life? I don't know.
Right.
Life is about making an dent in the universe. Oh, that's good. Life, I think, is to be all you can be, or some bullshit
Right.
stuff that we don't have no idea what that means. Like, what does that mean? Be the best you can be. So people say you be the best you can be. What does that mean? It's like, well, why are you being lazy? Why aren't you going out and hustle? But you told me to be the best I can be. I'm a fucking sloth. So why are you asking me to go out there and hustle? You
Yep.
know what I mean?
They
So,
they
so the thing is, what they say doesn't align with the I guess the identity or the meaning behind it.
and isn't this why we hate philosophers in general? Because it's really just words, like, and not action. Like, because
It is.
you could
It's the
have all the theories
hypocrisy
you want to.
because
Well, it's not hypocrisy because they haven't even done anything. If anything, it's worse. It might even be worse than
because I just
hypocrisy
told you,
because
hey, I'm
it's
a
just a
football
theory.
player, right? And I play no football. Am
Right.
I lying to you?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, right.
I'm
I
a
mean, yeah.
hypocrite,
Right.
right?
Right.
Right. Let's say to Chris, I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter.
Right.
Well, how do you
But
become
you
a
never sing,
songwriter?
or you're an actor.
I've never written a song,
Right.
right? But I say, I think I'm a songwriter. I think I'm a this, I'm that. It's hypocrisy.
Right. I agree.
So you're talking about philosopher, right? Philosophers say, hey, you should be stoic. You should be blah blah blah. Are you even doing that? If you're not, then shut the fuck up. I don't need to hear from you. Like I told you, I get
Right.
so like it grinds my gear when somebody who isn't diabetic is telling me how to solve my own fucking problem that I've been fucking 40 years trying to figure out.
Right.
And say, right, do you even have diabetes? If you don't, then shut the fuck up. I will only listen to
Good point.
somebody who has diabetes and has overcome it. If you don't have it, you have no say. It's not. You have no credibility.
Right.
And so a philosopher and any of these people who say you do this and do that, people say, hey, you go and you should be stoic. You should, yeah, like people say, hey, you should show your vulnerabilities or
Right.
blah 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 and blah blah blah. It's like it's a bunch of nonsense.
Well,
because
what's
because
even
this is
good.
because this is like you talking about the Taleb rant, the no skin in the game,
Right. Right. This is what I
right?
say.
This is
Soul in the game.
exactly
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
exactly what he means,
Right.
right? And now I'm ranting, which is it kind of pissed me off because people we talking about philosophy, right? People kind of take on that characteristic, that kind of role, and they pretend they preach to you, do what I say, not what I do.
Do you remember the one of the reflection titles? I forget. I even forget what book this is from, but it's preach the gospel at all times, but when necessary, use words. Like it's when you're actually being the verb and not the noun. You don't talk about it. Like I know that I talk to you about living for two. I don't walk around all day long and go, "Hey guys, living for two right now." I like because nobody gives a fuck. They don't care. They don't understand. Like this is actually, and I don't want to explain it to people. Like this is just what I do. Like if you want to know what Chris is doing in the morning, like I'm probably doing the same thing. So last night, remember when I was telling you yesterday when I was hanging out with one of my closest friends, Kevin, who in all full transparency, since like the pandemic and since everything that happened with Amelia, and like I don't get it, and he has a newborn son that's only a year old now. Like we don't get a chance to see each other very often. So for the most part in my life, like he doesn't know a lot of he doesn't know about True. He doesn't know about the podcast, Yomo. He doesn't know about a lot of this other stuff because I don't talk about it. I just do it, right? Like why am I? I'm not out there saying like, oh, I'm going to be an author or whatever. No, I just write every day. I don't know if you want to call me an author, call me an author. But like, I wouldn't call myself an author. I just write every day, right? Like, I mean, like, I don't know what that means, but like, do whatever you want to do and call it whatever you want to call it. That's what I do, right? Like I'm not a runner because I don't really even like running, but I run every day, right? Like, I mean, I don't know what you want to call that, but like that for me and Amelia, that is just us living for two time, which I understand it. I obviously my daughter, would understand this and you understand it because I tell you this. So it's like, it's not even worth telling to anybody because they wouldn't understand. So why even share the noun of what's going on, right? You know, because like they don't get it anyway, but they see what I do and they may go, I wonder why Chris does it every single day. And maybe if they ever ask me the question, then I can explain it and they go, oh, well, that makes sense. I get that now, you know? Like, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to explain it because when you're being the verb, like there's no reason to explain anything. Like you're just
the verb is the authenticity
right.
of who you are. Being a
It is.
noun, most of the time, is a hypocrite because, like,
It is.
I mean, like we're asking you before, is how do you become world class?
Keep doing it.
You
Like
don't become world class. You just
keep doing it. Like, you know, right. It just happens. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It just
you don't become
becomes.
world class.
Right.
You become world class by doing what you do, and you don't want to become world class.
Right.
Because the moment you want to become world class, like, oh well, you can never be world class because there is a like little small iota of focus that you have given to the worldly view of wanting to become world class, and that has not taken away from the focus of you being you to be world class. Because it's somebody who is not thinking about become world class, well, he has an advantage over you. He has one more hour over, one more whatever over you. Then therefore, you are just second world class.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
right? Because you think about it, if a guy who thinks about being world class and a guy who just being world class, that's a big difference.
Agreed. I mean, like, for instance, talk about hypocrisy. Most of my entire life, I've called myself an entrepreneur. I've done some entrepreneurial things in my life, but it's been few and far between. Like, you know, this is the first time that I can probably really say that I'm entrepreneuring right now, you know, and what I'm doing today. And not because like I didn't ever do innovative things, you know. I think the term is intrapreneur, right? You know, when you're within a company and you're trying to and you do a lot of innovative creative. I've done a lot of that in companies before, but I've never been an entrepreneur where I've had to where it's just on me. And this shit is fucking terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, my stomach has been in knots for the past like, you know, fucking month and a half, and like I mean, every day is like I mean, I wake up. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you right now. Like I keep waking up in like not a cold sweat, but basically like probably an hour and a half earlier than I normally would ever want to get up, and I'm just like sitting there going, I gotta, what do I gotta do? What do I gotta? Where am I at? I'm dreaming about the stupidest things right now, you know, that I'm like, you know, can't get it out of my goddamn head, and like this is the verb. Like, you know, I don't need to tell anybody I'm an entrepreneur at this point in time. Like I'm just entrepreneuring right now, and it's
yes, when you are a verb,
right,
a noun follows. That's what I'm saying is that a noun isn't to be. It's like if you announce a noun, you become a hypocrite.
Yeah, I agree.
You can say, you know, I haven't written any song, but I'm a songwriter, you know.
Right. Or I'm an actor. I just, you know, I'm a waiter today, you know, and that's I'm waiting to act. And you're like, well,
I mean, it's just the order of things.
Right. Yeah. Well, if you can act, you can act in plays. You can go act.
I mean, the noun is like the shadow of the verb, right? The shadow of the verb. It's there wherever you go, but you cannot change the noun by claiming to be something. You have to. It follows the verb. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, if you say, "Hey, I go to the left," right? The verbs are gonna follow. You can't say, "I'm on the right." No,
I run. No. I'm a runner. Like it's not. I'm a runner. I run. It's I run. I'm a runner, right? Like I
run. Therefore, I'm a runner.
Right.
It's not like I'm a runner. Therefore, I run. That doesn't make sense.
No. I mean, you can mentally say you're a runner in your mind, but if you never go run, like, then you're not a runner. I mean, I mean, I know this sounds so stupid, but it's not. To your point, like, you know, this sounds like it's the most obvious thing ever, but it's really
too
not.
obvious.
It's too obvious, right? Yeah, it's show me your bank account, show me your schedule, and I'll probably tell you what matters to you, right? You know, and what you're actually doing all day long. If you're constantly running around like a chicken with your head cut off, you know, and not accomplishing anything all day long, and you're at work for 70 hours of the week or whatever, and you know, to walk around and say, you know, I'm a, you know, whatever you want to claim, but like, no, that's not what you do. Like, you're not a parent. You don't parent. Like, you're never home. You don't. How are you going to call yourself a parent when you're not parenting? Like, you know, like, I mean, how are you going to tell your I don't know. I mean, like, there's so many things that labels that people give themselves when you're like, no, we're not really doing that, like, at all. And it's just like the values conversation that we've talked about over the whole entire journey of this. So many people think the noun value is what the word is what they
Hmm.
need to define, right?
I think this is where they get confusing as well,
It
because
is.
we talk about the core values in the past, and the thing is, you you don't claim a core values.
No, they find you like, and you go, oh, well,
No,
this is how I am.
you do the core
Right,
values.
right. You do them,
I
and then you
mean,
go, oh, I'm putting a word around what I'm doing so I can remember this and relate back to
exactly.
it. It's not the opposite. You don't
It's
say
not like, you know
competition's
what?
a core value. Like,
I
no, you
have
compete. Like,
honesty, right? I have, I will take honesty. I take
right,
challenge, or I
right,
take
right, right,
learning. But you don't learn fucking shit. Like, it's not good
right,
core values.
right, right. Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
I mean, unless you want to call, social media, Facebook Reels learning, or something like that. Like, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, maybe you could say I'm a learner and I just sit around all day long and go through my TikTok feed and look at cooking videos or whatever. Which, to be fair,
I mean,
like, there's
and
some
to
instrument, there's
me,
some
to
informational,
be fair,
you know.
if that's your definition, then that's
Sure,
fine. I mean,
yeah,
it is what it is. But most people don't do that, right?
right, that's true. Like,
They
yeah,
will say, I'm doing research and I'm a social media, what you call it, social media expert, or blah blah blah, and they
influencer,
go,
yeah,
yeah, and they go onto to Facebook, and all they do is consume and not create. Well,
right,
you're not an influencer if you don't influence anything. You get the
sure,
influencing, right? You're the influencee, not the
right,
influencer. So
right.
that's the thing is, people I guess have a different, a difficult time, a difficulty in, I guess, distinguishing between, whether or not something is, their core value, and something it is not, but it's kind of like, um, being like blanket or coverage as
Right.
something different, and people get confused in that, and that confusion keeps them
It's
out
not
of this.
confusing. My God, this is not confusing at all. It's look at the book that I'm reading right now is called First Break All the Rules. It's another Marcus Buckingham book, and it was like one of his original, the guy that did
Mhm.
like Love and Work and Nine Lives About Work, and it
Right.
was like his first book that he ever wrote. It was called First Break All the Rules, and he did it with Gallup and the Clifton Strengths test stuff. Like, this is a way more like scientific-y kind of book. The other ones are
Mhm.
more personal to him. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Like, what I was getting ready to say is, he talks about this a lot, in his subsequent books, of like Nine Lives About Work and Love and Work. But in this book, it's very much more scientific around like the actual work life, of like, this is polls that we did, and this is what we saw. This is polls that we did, and this is like assessments that we took, and this is what we saw. Like, this is what this book kind of really is all about. And he talks a lot about what he calls, what he defines as talent is, a set of characteristics or a set of actions, that you habitually do, basically, right? Like, that is your talents, right? Like, people think that, and what I'm going with this is, like, you just look at what you always do and then reverse backwards to say, these are my values, right? Like, either whatever is something that your elephant naturally does, this is what your talent is, right? Like, it was like, everybody has talents, which, i.e., these would be like red threads, or where you find yourself in the zone, or whatever you want to define it as, right? It's when your elephant has a neural pathway that's like a superhighway that just goes, myelin wrapped all around it, and you're like, I just do this, and you do it better than 10,000, one in every 10,000 other people. And everybody has these talents. That is where you pick to figure out what your values are. Like, you look at what you already do, and then you put words around it. That's the exact same thing of what we're talking about here. You look at what your actions are, and then you put words around it, right? Like, you don't put words around it and then go try to find actions out of it. It's, what do you do? What are you talented in? What do you like or not like? What brings up strong emotional pulls for you either way? Go then put the words around that. And then that's a blueprint and a compass for you to remind you, oh yeah, when I see this situation, this is a red thread. Run at it, right? When I don't see this situation, then it's probably you're a C student in it, and run the fuck away from it. Like, I mean, it's like, I know that this is like, for us now, this is like such a commonplace activity and idea that we've discussed so many times. But like, I promise you, this is a lot. 99.9% of people in this world, I don't think, understand this, because I think they're doing it the opposite, the way that you're describing it. Of, this is who I want to be, I think. I'm going to go then create the actions out of that. And then they don't, and then those actions most of the time don't really align with what they think that they thought it was going to be. And then they're fucking miserable, right? It's do the opposite. Like whatever you
Well,
do,
I mean, whatever you describe is so simple and it's so easy,
right?
but it's difficult. And I
It
tell you
is
why.
like,
And I tell you why it's difficult, right? So the thing is, if you look at your life and your life, my life, and whoever's life, just look at your life, the way that you see it, it's so simple and it should be so simple and so easy. But the problem is that society give you a rosy glass. It covers your eyes. You don't see what you're supposed to see. You see something else. You see
right.
something completely different. Basically, they cover the they put a veil over your eyes, rosy glass, whatever you call it. You are not seeing what you're supposed to see,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
that's why people are confused.
It is
Because
confusing.
because
I want to eat the frog, No, I don't.
you've been told,
Right, yeah.
you've been conditioned to do this, do that, do all a bunch of shit that just
I
like
want to embrace the suck, Like
I mean, you think about it.
I want to do the hard things
If I
first.
give you a map to go from from building A to building B, right? So I give you a map. I say, hey, Chris, come meet me over here. I'm over here. Look at the map, right?
Right.
Okay. I give you a map, and I say, well, I'm on this corner of First Street and A lane or whatever. I'm at the corner. And I
Right.
give you a map that has First Street and A lane as well. But your map is different than my map.
Okay. Yeah.
How can you find me?
You mean like you're actually like First Street and A lane is not the same on each map?
It's not. I give you a different map.
Oh, well then
You will never find me. This
I
is
mean,
why I'm saying.
I don't know how
This is why I'm saying it's confusing to people.
Right. Yeah.
Until you remove that veil that's been put over you, you're not going to find what we are saying simple. You and I had to go through great lengths to even get to this point, right?
Yes.
You and I have been searching for something for so long. And even when we first got together 4 years ago, we didn't even know then.
No idea.
Through all the everyday meeting with you an hour and doing all the podcasts and reading all the books, that you and I have come to the point where, yeah, I see it now. I understand. But before that, you asked me to be honest with you. I have no, I don't know. I had a feeling that what I'm doing here is not what I want to be. That's all I know. Right. I don't know where to go.
You had an emotion. You had an emotion, a trigger, and you're like, I don't know what this means. Like, and I don't.
The emotion says I don't want to be here.
Act. It says act. Yeah, it says act. But what do I act?
Right, and that's the same thing is basically is when you had your atomic bomb, you're completely lost, and you say, well, yeah, I'm lost, but I don't want to be here. I got to go to a different place. So you and I were looking for a direction or some sort of something
on a quest. I mean,
on a quest.
That's why it's called the year of imaginal
learning. You don't want to be there, right? Yeah, and that's the only thing we know, and that's the only thing I know, to be honest with you, because I don't know what it is I want. Even in the beginning, I don't know what I want.
You have a question. You have a beautiful question, and that's why it's called a quest. And you follow it, and you just keep asking questions, checking in along the way, and you keep having thoughts after thoughts after thoughts, and reflection after reflection after reflection, and then guiding and then taking the next step. I mean, like
that's the reason why it's confusing. It is easy if you see the right point of reference.
I mean,
if you know your core values. It's easy if you think about what's the questions you ask yourself.
Right.
But if you haven't, then it's very, very confusing. And when it's confusing,
it's impossible. It's actually impossible. If we just had this conversation with a random person on a random street corner, they'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But like, what do you
No, it doesn't make sense.
Like it does, I mean, and conceptually, I guess that makes sense to me. But like to what you were saying, to your point.
I mean, eating a frog makes sense.
It does. I mean, everything makes sense if you can make it make sense. I mean, if you're persuasive.
Rise, grinds, and repeat. That makes sense.
Makes sense. I mean,
hustle makes sense.
It does.
Right? It does.
Eat the frog makes. I mean, like you said, makes sense. Like it's.
but I don't want to eat the frog. I don't want to do the hard things first. I want to do only easy things.
Right. Look, fail fast makes sense. I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I mean, I get it.
Does
like,
it? Does it make sense?
But I get it. Like, I
It
don't.
makes.
But I don't. It doesn't. But like, I think what I was gonna say though, in conjunction to this, is we're saying this like smiling and joking and saying like it's very simple, but it took 361 books, two written books, 361 podcasts with somebody every night, meeting for 4 years, and we still don't know anything, but we're at least we've maybe started taking a
Well, we
path,
don't know
walk down a
anything,
path.
but we know something about us. You know
Right.
what you
Yes.
want, right? You know there's certain thing that, hey, because you can tell me right now, say, hey, True, go become this leader. I know, thank you. I don't want it. I want
Right.
peace
Yeah.
and quiet, right? I know. Hey, you say, hey, True, help me with this Wix thing. Say, I'm gonna give to someone who is much better than me, who can do
Right.
that, and who's love to do that. I will like delegate and I make that alignment. I would take on the fun stuff. For me, the
Right.
fun stuff, like, hey,
Yeah.
go look at statistics, look at data, look at patterns. Like, I do that. I give it to somebody who is like maybe you say, what the fuck would I look at the data for? It's like confusing, right?
Yep.
When I do to my when I have to do taxes, I would hand it out to a CPA. I'm not gonna do it. So
Right.
that's what I'm saying is, I don't know shit about the world, but I know shit that pertains to me.
Right.
That's the only thing you can do.
I agree. That is, yes, I agree, because I remember that being one of our lessons we talked about along this way too, which was like, I don't know anything, but the one thing I do know is myself, right? Or at least I'm getting better at knowing myself, right? And if you do know that, then that's fine. That's something you can lock into and hold on to. I started to laugh as soon as you said like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, and it triggered a Luca memory. Every single time that, like, and maybe we should listen to little kids more often, right? I don't know if your kids ever did this, but like, he's at the age now when you ask him to do something, he goes, I don't want to. And you're like,
I don't wanna.
Luca, I need you to, I don't wanna, and you're like he says this all the time now, and you're like, hey, we need to change for dinner, or like for bedtime. I don't want to, and you're like, well, I mean, it's just funny you said that, because it's like little
And
kids,
then what?
it's
And then
natural,
what do we do? We
we
condition them to
we
follow
make
and
him do it,
obey.
right? Like, right. Like, he doesn't want to fucking do it. And
And
I'm
this
like,
is the reason why the thing is, by default, you are already imprisoned in this framework.
oh yeah,
And that's how the book say, awaken your genius, escape. You have to escape. I mean, you are by default already imprisoned of some sort.
that was rule number one. It was uneducate yourself, right? Confuse the algorithms that have been, these are the algorithms that we give our children. These are the algorithms you're given in school. When you do what you're supposed to do, you get a way to go, here's an A+, you're the best, you're so smart, and you're like, yeah, I am smart, I did that, like, I'm really good, like, they like me, like, and you're like, that's what they want, that's what
I
everybody
mean, you
wants you
think
to do.
about it. You think about it. If I go and I punch a kid in the face, and then you applauded me, right? And you, hey, True, you showed that kid, right?
Yep.
You,
Right.
you are encouraging me to be this asshole,
I
and
mean, how do you
I
think
do. I punch more people, more kids, and more kids, and more kids, right? You think about it.
how do you
You're
think pit bulls are
encouraging
trained?
habits.
Right. I mean, this is literally how pit bulls are trained. I'm pretty sure that I've read that pit bulls are actually kind of nice and gentle animals. But for whatever reason, people started to breed them to not be that, and now they are not that. And when you see a pit bull, the first thing you think of is, oh, that's a mean dog. Like that's what they're supposed to do. Like, you're right. Like, anybody can be conditioned to this stuff. You have to unlearn and fuck up with the algorithms, right? That are programmed in your brain. Like, I mean, you don't want to do them all, like, but find the algorithms that matter to you. Find your talents, right? Find your red threads. Find your things that you love, right? The one thing that's been an interesting revelation to me with the whole, atomic bomb event before and after, is I don't think that I've actually changed. I think that I just know myself now better, and when I know myself now better, I can then figure out a way to connect with my daughter now better, and that's probably one of the.
It's being basically like being like taking a bath. Like you have been encrusted with all this gunk, like I told you, in order to become you, you have to do less of things that doesn't
Yes.
matter to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all you gotta do
Exactly.
is
Yes.
inside of you is still you. It's just
Right.
that over the year you have been conditioned and wrapped in all this gunk, right? All this suit or whatever. You're being completely covered in shit and ashes or whatever that you don't want,
Right.
right? The only way for you to become yourself is you wash it away or you unpeel the layers that is covering you. So the thing that you do is you have to chip away the things that, hey, I used to do this. I don't do it
I don't
anymore.
do this anymore.
I
Yeah.
used to do this. I don't do it anymore. Right? I
Right.
used to, waste time doing social media stuff or whatever. I'm not saying social media is bad. I'm just saying if it pertains to you and it is that what you
It
do,
isn't aligned to
great,
who you want to be, then don't do
right?
it.
If
Like,
it's not, then it
yeah.
is. It isn't, right? For,
I,
for,
I
for people
just
to
I just
go.
deleted my Facebook and Instagram or LinkedIn again. I was like today I found myself woken. I woke up and I started clicking on it. I'm like, I don't want it. Like
I don't
I don't
want
want this.
it.
I was like, God damn it, I'm
You
deleting this.
have
Like
to, Chris. You have
it's
to.
I was like, it's gone. I don't even care if I'm checking, like I'm gonna let Nazim do it. Like I don't give a fuck. I do not want to be on Facebook anymore because I found
That's why
myself
you delegate. You
I
delegate it.
can't
Is you can do it. You can
right.
do it, but you need to delegate the things that's not your vital priority. I mean,
It is. I don't want it. Like, I mean, sorry, I don't, it's not that I don't want any of it. I only want it when I want it in a small dose, at a very particular time when I have the time that I want to go do that
Mhm.
activity, which is not regularly, right? Like, I don't want that to be a habit. Like, what I want to be the habits that I build my life around, the talent or the talents that I have. I don't have a talent for scrolling on Facebook, or maybe I do. I don't know. I mean, maybe I just do have a really good talent for going like this through Facebook and like it really is a red thread for me. Maybe it is, but it's not a red thread that I want, right? Like I can choose what red
But the
threads
thing
that
is,
I
this is what
pull.
I'm saying before: is a red thread and a thread is
A
something that
thread,
you
yes,
need
it's a
to
thread,
be
yes.
able to distinguish. Because if you say, hey, when I play poker, right? It's like I'm completely immersed, like in that, whatever, and I feel great. But then when I go home at 7 a.m. in the morning, it doesn't feel great. So
Right.
something is you sit there and you scroll on Facebook and you spend 3 hours doing it. After you realize you spent 3 hours in it, you say, "Fuck, I shouldn't have done that." Well, that is not really a red thread. It's a thread, because the
Right.
thing is, a red thread is something. Hey, when you do it right, it makes you even
It adds
even
value.
better,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It adds
It
value
adds
to
value.
you.
Right.
It doesn't say, "Well, I didn't get shit out of it," right?
Yeah,
I
right.
spent I spent all this time playing poker, right? And everybody's going to bed, and I'm still playing, and that was
Right.
like
And now I wake
12
up
hours
late the
ago.
next day and I miss doing other things I wanted to do in the morning. I didn't write today because I was
You
out
didn't
until
eat
7 a.m. I
breakfast,
didn't eat
your healthy cheer, right?
right,
Blah blah,
right.
right? You have given up a lot. It's too expensive of a price.
Right.
Everything has a price, but the thing that you do that it consumes you, right? Is it expensive? Expensive meaning, hey, it costs you more than you want, because that's the reason why when you do something and you are drawn to it, but you're paying too much,
Right.
like the poker, the online media, or the drinking and whatever, it is too much of a price, and
It
that
is.
becomes a threat. A threat is very, very similar to a red thread.
You need to
And
write that
so,
down as a truism for your Fred, your fake red threads. You need to write that one down, because
a
I think
thread thread,
that's a really good one. That's a really good one. Honestly,
it kind of stick because I keep
it's clever.
referring to Fred.
Right, right, yeah. I love it. I mean, I really like it.
Catchy.
I mean, it's very catchy. It's very it's easy to remember and
But it's important to
right.
understand the distinction, because
It
that's
is. It
where
is.
people get confused.
Yep.
It's hard because they, hey, well,
I
I,
love
I
doing
I love
cocaine.
playing poker. I
Right.
love drinking. I love
Right.
smoking. Well, you tell me that I should follow and do what I feel
My
like
red
doing,
threads.
right?
Yeah, yeah, like,
Right? I
yeah.
follow my red thread. Well, what? And then you tell me, well, no, it's very, this is the mimics, right? The thread is the mimics of a red thread, and that is like a decoy, and
Yep.
that is where you fall into the trap. And so that's the reason why you have to be able to distinguish what between a red thread and a thread thread.
I think I'm gonna write about a Fred thread actually
You should.
tomorrow. Only just to remember it and document it for my own memory palace because this I was searching for so I just finished this book on Tuesday called Blitzed. It's about drugs in the Third Reich, and it was like Hitler was, you know, 100% an insanely, you know, drug addict. Like I mean, he was a huge drug addict. He was a meth addict. He was doing speedballs of like cocaine and opioids, you know, like I mean, but the funny thing is he didn't even know it. Like had his personal doctor with him everywhere that he went. This guy was just injecting and you know all day long. He was like, just make me feel good. You know, it's like okay, I got you. Like I gotta go perform for you know people. And he's like, okay, great. Like you know, and he was like, he thought he was just giving him vitamins for the longest time. And I think eventually he probably caught on. You know, like oh shit, I think this dude's like you know anyway Hitler was like insane, right? Like he was a huge druggie basically, and he was going through withdrawal almost the entire last few months of the war because they lost all their supply and they you know couldn't get the drugs, and he was like literally falling apart, clawing at his skin, teeth falling out, you know, like I mean huge withdrawals. The whole entire fucking army was doing all this stuff as well of taking methamphetamines to called Pervitin that they used to like do their blitzkrieg activities and whatever, and people were all kinds of fucked up from that stuff, and their whole entire you know there's the infantry kind of guys as well, and they were pushing this drug use all over the place with these people. They thought they actually were clean and sober and Puritan, you know, side stuff, but they were doing things that nobody knew were that highly addictive, and they thought it was just like taking an aspirin or something like that, you know. And anyway, reason why I'm bringing this
rosy up, glass once again.
Exactly. Yeah, you think that it's something good, but you're really, you know, it's a Fred, right? Which is actually what I think I've been searching for the answer to this because like of what I wanted to write about this one because I wrote like 3/4 of it. And I was like, I know kind of what I want to say, and this is about like PEDs, like performance enhancing drugs. You know, they're kind of a Fred, right? You know, you think that it's enhancing, you know, what you like to do, but really it unravels really fast down the road. And
it's like looking at a set of twin and trying to determine which one is your wife.
Yeah, I mean that's really fucking confusing. I mean, yes, that would be. But you have to know. I mean, you have to know. Like that's a really good point. I mean, I don't have a twin wife, but I would assume you have to really, really, really know who your wife is and what her little small characteristics are to be able to pinpoint the difference between the two. Because I'm sure there's differences, like whether it be personality or you know maybe there's a freckle or something like that or whatever. But like you got to be able to distinguish those minute differences between I love gambling and I love playing poker.
The point is very minute, very minute difference between a red thread and a Fred. So it's like they're telling between the twins.
It's hard. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's almost impossible. But I'm writing
That's down. Why it's very confusing.
It is. That's why I just wrote down Fred thread. That's what I'm gonna try to work through that because I think you just solved my. I honestly I stopped writing yesterday morning about this one because I was like. I got about halfway through it and I was like, I know what I want to say, but I don't know exactly how to get there, you know, and connect the dots in my head. But I think that just connected the dots. So thank you. I'm gonna steal that one.
I think that's important. That's why I bring it up. You know, like I said, I don't write a lot of stuff down, but whatever is important, it stays with me. Like I talk about like the devil doesn't know that he's the devil. That is something is very important because it's very fitting. That's what people do, right? Because anyone could be anyone's devil. Because hey, I'm thinking I'm helping you, but you know you may not appreciate what I'm doing for you because you tell Luca, hey, go change. I don't wanna, but you make it. I say I'm doing it for your own good. You know, you are my son, and I'll protect you. And blah blah. Right? You're the fucking devil to him.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, somebody was just calling me. I was supposed to meet him at 4:30. We lost track of time. So yeah. Okay. Sorry. Do you want to? Can we? Are you feel purged for this one for the day?
We purged, but it should be. We could do more. In different episodes. Yes. We shall revisit the red thread.
Yes, I'm sure we will talk about it again in the future. All right. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. The question we can leave with you is: are you focused on being the noun or the verb? It's really important, very important distinction. And you know, don't forget it. Okay. Thanks for joining, and we will see you for 362. We are so close to the original marathon finish line, and we are making our way through. So we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.